Ladies and gentlemen, hello again and welcome back to Don't Worry About the Government. My name is Chris Novembrino. This is episode 521 on our march to 50,000 episodes of Don't Worry About the Government. Joining me on this step, this additional increment in that crusade is Dan Carpenter. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Chris.
So am I. So am I. You didn't ask, but I figured I'd volunteer that. You know what I have here in the fridge or in the microwave behind me, Dan. It will depend. We'll see how I'm feeling later. I have ungodly hot chicken. There is this place here in Dallas called Ricky's Nashville Hot Chicken, and I needed to eat today. I've not been drinking enough water. I was like spicy chicken. So I see this Ricky's Nashville Hot Chicken, and they've got 5 levels of spice. I got level 4, and the guy at the register is like, "I need you to understand that this is 6 habanero peppers, 6 habanero peppers in every bite." And I like looked at him, and I was just like, "Buddy, bring it. That's nothing to me. I'm not scared of that at all." And he was like, "I need you to understand that this is 6 habanero peppers in like every bite. That's how hot this is." And I was just like looking at him and I was like, "You're a fool. You mean nothing to me. I disregard you. What could you know about spice, guy who works at Ricky's Nashville Hot Chicken? Come on. What would you have on me on this? Let me tell you, Dan, this chicken is hot. This chicken is really, 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 really hot. I made the mistake while I was driving of like, I bought a leg and I bought a breast and
Just could,
yo,
just couldn't wait.
I was
Just
like,
couldn't
why
wait.
not? No, why not? Why not? Have I bought 2 tenders. I bought 2 tenders to nibble on. They had tenders. They had the legs. They had the breasts. I was like, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna have the dark meat. I'm gonna have the tenders. I went to nibble on one of these tenders. The pain. I'm having PTSD from about 90 minutes ago when I was chomping on this thing. It was the biggest mistake I have made in at least 3 weeks. And maybe longer. Probably upwards of a good 6 to 7 weeks, honestly. It was unbelievably hot. Like at 4, I couldn't possibly like I can now imagine what 5 is like. And 5 is like you will be in the hospital if you try to eat this stuff and you've never eaten anything remotely like that hot and have no idea what your threshold is. This hurts so bad. I've got a piece in there. We'll see how I'm feeling at the end of the show here when we get into plugs and everything. Maybe I pull out that second tender, I eat that on air, and I make fun of Cody while in extreme pain. I tell
That's
you exactly how I feel about Cody while being in pain. How's that sound?
it
That's a
sounds
good
like
show
a
close, right?
sounds like a dare. Sounds like a bet.
Okay, okay. Oh, you're daring me. Okay, you're betting me on this. Cody, get ready. Later in this episode, buddy, you're about to get buried. That's how it's going. But first, the burials are going in other directions here. This is like the scandal section. When I was putting together this week's slate, I was like, my God, you could just do an entire episode on that, and we're going to kind of plow through some of that stuff relatively quickly. Everyone's got scandals right now. The Democratic and Republican Party are laden with politicians at a high profile level who are kind of rather big embarrassments to their respective parties. But first, I want to talk about Joe Biden, who we're going to have to get into on meatier stuff. But I saw this story the other day that a Mississippi man will serve a life sentence for 1.5 ounces of marijuana. Did you see this story? Be
I
prior to me
did.
sending you the slate here.
Um, no, I don't think it crossed my transom.
So Alan Russell was in possession of 5 bags of marijuana when he was arrested, and 2 of the 5 bags contained 1.5 ounces. And Mississippi law permits a life sentence for habitual offenders if the offender served a year in prison for 2 individual felonies, and one of those felonies was a violent offense. So, did this guy have previous offenses? Sure. What was he guilty of in this case? 1.5 ounces of marijuana, a substance that's legal all across the country. And like I saw this the other day, and the first thing that popped in my head is like, This is a national story. It's a horrible story. And here is yet again a thing that Joe Biden could do with a stroke of a pen. Like, he could completely correct and fix this injustice. And instead, like, as is the trend in many of these places, unlike Trump, who is an active aggressor and an active hand of aggression in many cases, kind of let the bull run a little bit. Joe Biden is a real violence in doing nothing sort of guy. Like a guy, yeah, he sits
Yeah,
back,
there's a
lets the
real
trolley
trend of
hit
that,
you.
real trend of that going this week.
Yes, yes. And so I saw this story before all of the, I mean, well, around the same time as the Israel's situation really started to peak up about 10, 11 days ago here. But I saw that and that immediately stuck out to me. And I also just wanted to wish you a happy 2-year anniversary of this Joe Biden take. The thing that will fundamentally change with Donald Trump out of the White House, not a joke, is that you will see an epiphany occur with many of my Republican friends.
It's a gem. They're really coming around on something something real new and
Since the last time we
terrific.
taped, Liz Cheney got tossed from leadership, and Elise Stefanik, who is by any measure, like done by congressional levels, less conservative than Liz Cheney, was promoted into leadership basically on the explicit statement that it's because she supports Donald Trump.
Sure.
The decoupling from Donald Trump is just not happening at this point.
Yeah, I mean that it would require a lot of people to be honest with themselves in a way that people just really aren't, unless they are really confronted with it, and they aren't really being confronted with it. Like the media that they consume is continuing the fairy tale. Uh their representatives continue to give them the red meat that makes it all feel better. Like it's all gonna,
The
like they've been
GOP Twitter
aggrieved.
account
They're the
still hasn't
victims.
deleted some of the big lie tweets from the big lie era. Like they
Herman
just, yeah,
Herman Cain's Twitter account is still tweeting and still tweeting anti-vax stuff. It's
anti-vax stuff. Guy died of COVID. Guy died of COVID. Um,
it's
yeah, no, and the more I think about the Republican primaries, which I know to people seem so far away, but look, I think that this round of primaries is a really good education. Like, it starts right after the election. It's unfortunate. It's not the way it should go or whatever, but it does start right after the election. It is impossible to me, from Josh Hawley to Ron DeSantis, to really picture a path to the nomination without Trump's explicit blessing. And so it would seem to me, for any of these would-be nominee aspirants, the first thing you would want to know with certitude is that Donald Trump wasn't going to run. And at this point, the only person it would seem to me who has maybe a track at getting an agreement from Trump on that front would be DeSantis, because of the stuff around Trump and the way that Florida ties into that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But even that, I think, is a very outside shot. It seems to me like if Trump doesn't want, if Trump wants the nomination, he is going to regain the Republican nomination for a third time.
Yeah. 48% of the respondents would
Yeah, and then if you
want
throw
Trump.
in, yeah, Don Jr. and like other, like,
Yeah,
basically
all the
Trump
things that are
proxies, yeah.
sure.
I mean, the other way of looking at like some of those polls too, is there anyone on those polls who has any real base of support independent of Trump? And like the Mitt Romneys and the Liz Cheneys and those type of people who they try to put on those polls have nothing.
Yeah,
Um,
single digits.
yes, the anti-never Trump conservatives who aren't really Trump, but like don't, they're not never Trump, but they're not pro Trump or whatever. They think that there's some third way. There isn't any sort of, like, they have a fantasy candidate in their mind, a perfect island sort of candidate that can at once reject Trump, but also somehow not be never Trump.
They just haven't really been asked to kiss the ring. Like, he hasn't called your wife ugly and then made you kiss the ring Ted Cruz style.
Yeah,
Like,
brought the
like they,
forces of his masses, the drag posse. I mean, remember what he did to Lindsey Graham where he put out the phone? Like,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, yeah, dude, he was pretty ruthless in getting control of the party. And like, I think it was harder to get control of the party than it is to keep it. I mean, I'm looking going back to that 2015. He's got to break Graham. You know what I mean? And like Graham's trying to fight back. He gets broken eventually, but like Graham tries to fight back. Graham makes fun of Trump. Graham goes on TV, talks exactly what Trump is, and is very candid about it. And then there's a breaking process. Um, Graham is still broken.
yeah.
So, that's just an indicator, one of many, that the path to the nomination is this much easier in 2024 than it was in 2016. I still think he's got it if he wants it.
I mean, he has received this. I mean, its population's always increased, but he has received the second most votes of any person in American history. Like it's,
And he outperformed expectations
yeah,
in a number of those
absolutely.
states. Yeah.
Given
And
given how many people had died before the election, 300, or were we in the 300s yet?
yeah, I
Or
think I know we were well over 250,000 dead. Which is stunning.
just, yeah,
Yeah,
given given those
and
kinds of
he
numbers,
outperformed expectations in popular vote. Like he has a thrall on people, like the Fifth Avenue thrall. Like and I do think you certainly see this in mainstream media, liberal Democratic commentary, but I also think this is true, like broader in the Democratic electorate commentary, that people really underestimate how strong this guy's thrall is on people. And that though he is chilling out at Mar-a-Lago and like putting out those meandering statements, the second he is back, they are going to be back with him.
I don't think it's a good, like, I mean, everybody's going to be able to remember Trump, but I don't think it's a good thing that, I mean, it may be a good thing for all of our psyches that we aren't constantly imbibing Trump, but
Yeah, sure.
it's
No, it is.
it's his brand only can like grow and fester in the dark without him constantly shooting it, like shooting it down, essentially. Like I don't think people growing old, like the memories of Trump growing old, the worst ones going away, the funny ones becoming fonder in people that were that inclined, is going to do anything but, like,
Oh no, especially as for that Republican electorate, times get worse under the Democrats. They're going to have more and more nostalgia for, well, Trump wasn't really that bad. Like, God,
yeah,
I would just love to be, I know he tweeted a lot, but God, I just wish we could be rid of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
especially like the Eurozone is poised for a recession. We like the massive stimulus that we went through during COVID, like we had a recession under a disaster, and we put all of this stimulus into the economy that pushed off what was a very looming recession before
Yeah,
COVID
no, I
hit.
know.
And so it's that wave is going to crash at some point. We somehow, like, the all the COVID stimulus, like that little bit of Keynesianism did some good in, like, in pushing off for a little bit, but unless, I don't, the
No, okay, so on that front, the thing that is concerning me a lot lately, and I mean, we haven't talked about it a lot on the show heretofore because I thought that Bitcoin, which is a topic I didn't throw on the slate,
oh,
but I did want to kind of riff on for just a second. I love that Bitcoin hanging out between $10,000 and $20,000 as a place where counterfeiting, money laundering, that sort of money laundering specifically, and that sort of thing could happen. Okay, it's a known entity. It has some draw and some interest in the world, but it's not going to have this economic distortive effect in any serious way. I am now moving to a position where I am legitimately concerned about what Bitcoin is doing to the broader stock market. And thusly, because the stock market is, yes, the stock market is not the economy. However, like the movement of capital through the stock market versus the Bitcoin market are two completely different things. And like the fact that more and more money is getting drawn away from the stock market into this bullshit. Like
That
like like
little that
cryptocurrency is nothing. It's not real stuff.
things are going to come to a halt if there's too much, if too much of our liquidity moves into these things that aren't actually
They're
I,
not
like
they're not real. They're not
yeah,
real
they're
things.
not real.
You're not legally protected holding them. I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't want to. I certainly don't want this to come off as Chris is now going in defense of the stock market. But I want to paint a picture of how my holdings in companies I own in the stock market are vastly different. I purchase a share of something. I get paperwork from the broker that says I have purchased this share. That is legally binding paperwork. That is backed. Like all of that matters. But beyond that, periodically there are actually like board elections or whatever, and your share entitles you to a vote in the company. You are actively holding something when it comes to a share of Coca-Cola. You have one extra teeny tiny uni weeny weeny small vote among a giant sea of whatever. Same thing with Amazon. You have one teeny tiny small vote, but you are actively holding something. Bitcoin is basically digital gold. Like it's gold, except unlike gold, which you can actually use to alloy electronics and other hardware and stuff, and actually has like a pragmatic use value that's very valuable to technology. Bitcoin, um, it is none of these things. And so I look, I get that. I talk to listeners of the show who tell me, Chris, I'm making money on Bitcoin right now. More power to you. However, if you look at the flux that is going on in Bitcoin right now, where the Bitcoin market rallies up 33% and drops down 53%, shit's going on in there right now.
It's
Yeah, inappropriate
it's
shit's going
also
on.
it's also who's the a lot of crypto people are going to be in for a similar ride to the GameStop folks, in that it's going to come down to who's cashing the check. And Coinbase can't, like, if a run happens, Coinbase like doesn't have the liquidity to cash everybody out. And what's actually going to happen is the large corporation, the big players are going to get to cash out before any average Joe. And so it's going to be the crash is going to happen. It's if they isolate it in that way, it's gonna be bad for a lot of people, like bad for a lot of average people, but it might not tank the economy in the way that it could otherwise.
Yeah. So the GameStop comp is an interesting one. Yeah, full disclosure, have no holdings in GameStop, or AMC or any of those, meme stocks or what we kind of call them or whatever.
Sure.
However, in the case of the meme stocks, at least specifically GameStop is based off of a short squeeze. It is about squeezing short positions on the stock.
Sure,
Yeah, no,
I
no,
just meant
but
like
I get what you're saying too.
everybody's using Robinhood, and so it's when it came time or a lot of people were using Robinhood, and so Robinhood was able, like, because they were the one cashing the checks, they were the one who had written all of the contracts essentially. They were
Yeah.
able to prioritize how people cashed out, controlled how people cashed out.
Oh no,
And
I
the
know.
exact
Oh,
same
I
shit's
know.
gonna happen. Yeah, the exact same shit's gonna happen to every crypto. Like, how many of these?
I think
How
it's
many
gonna be
people have
worse.
actually?
That was yeah.
How many people have
I think
actually
this is
read the
way
user
worse.
agreements for any of these?
Oh,
Like,
there's not shit. So like in the case, this is what I was kind of getting at with GameStop is GameStop's a situation that you can get yourself informed on and understand, and there's enough information out there that if you want to do your due diligence on GameStop and get involved in the short side or the long side of GameStop, you can go and you can look at the health of the company. You can you get acquainted with what like third party literature is. With Bitcoin, there remains this big lingering question of who the hell is Satoshi? The person who holds it. This would be like if GameStop had a mysterious masked majority shareholder that had the ability at any point to sell all of their shares and absolutely fundamentally fuck the company's health, and the health of everyone who is a holder of that asset.
Sure. Well,
That's what concerns me.
I mean, I'm I mean, didn't Musk do that a little bit to Dogecoin or whatever? I mean,
Yes.
Dogecoin was a joke to
Yes.
begin with, but he definitely fucked some people. Like
And
he memified it,
and then he would
I
say,
don't know
"Oh,
that.
it's all basically a scam, anyways. Don't be in Doge." And like, this is the other problem with cryptos. Is My biggest problem with cryptos is the fact that we keep saying currency at the end of it.
Yeah,
If you want to call them crypto stocks, I guess I'm fine with that, because that's essentially what you have. You have crypto stocks, as in like they are secret, spooky stocks to companies that don't exist. And if you think that that's a good or fun way to like make money, um, go ahead. If you need to launder some money, crypto stocks are great. But like it's the fact that people think that it's currency. Like there's this like delusion that one day in the future we will all be paying for things with our Bitcoin tokens. Especially because Bitcoin continues to appreciate in value. That is explicitly why it will never make a good currency. Its lack of stability is absolutely what hurts it.
yeah.
Yeah. You want commodities like silver in a way is a better commodity than gold, even because it doesn't
All
like appreciate as much.
all of the guys who paid 3 Bitcoin for like 500 tabs of ecstasy on the dark web in 2009 are real pissed that they don't have
Yes,
that $100,000 now.
that's a terrible currency.
Yeah,
I mean, when
and
you're talking
no,
about
but
those type of currencies, it's like a South American style
it can
currency or
never
something.
it can never be adapted because you have that institutional memory. You have that I remember when this was this, and now it's completely blown out. Like we look at economies with those types of currencies as failing
Like,
or as dysfunctional.
right, absolutely, absolutely. Um, yeah, I just think about like this is not a grand in defense of gold or silver as a backing structure. I mean, I think you can do Federal Reserve banking and have that be fine too. But like the virtue of gold and silver as a commodity is that we have established through, in the case of gold and silver, like 10,000 fucking years of human existence, what the
Yeah,
worth is of gold and silver. And so you don't have to sit there ever at any point in your life and go, there's going to be a point where my gold is going to be worth 10 bajillion million dollars, and I better not do any business today because that gold is going to go up in a serious way. You can look at like inflationary charts and like, you know what I mean? Like they have what's the appreciation of gold going to be down to more or less a pretty tight tabulation at this point. So
yeah.
yeah, you don't have to live like that. Um, let's pivot to the next topic here. You know what? I want to do this first. Let's do CDC mask mandates. So Dan, CDC said mission accomplished. COVID is over. OVAH over. Are you still wearing your mask anywhere?
Oh, I wear my mask 8 hours a day. I am I'm the in-house landscaper at a I guess a leisure center, like an outdoor mall with breweries and restaurants, and I am a relatively forward-facing employee.
Sure.
We have like the whole our whole campus, whole 12 acres is edible, and so I'm constantly dealing with people just wandering the property, like, oh, what's that tree? What do we got here? Uh, and so I was rather annoyed with the CDC because I work in an outdoor place. We it's private property. We can have our own rules for now. How long we can maintain those rules in the uh, face of
The
the CDC
yes.
like mandate is less than like that really limits us. It like once the public opens up, like if you don't have enough people actually wearing their masks, then less people start wearing their
For
masks.
you
Like
as a
you get
worker, it
vicious
kind of
circle.
becomes pointless. Yeah, yeah, you're just not
Well,
getting the meaningful protection if you. Yeah,
at this point, it is it's still company policy that all employees like need to be masked. But I mean, I personally, I mean, not that I like it, but it's going to be strange transitioning back.
I
And
don't know that I am. Bought. I mean, like,
that's I do a lot of I need to wear a protective dust mask throughout a lot of my shift
well,
anyway. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
uh, at this point, I instinctively find myself pulling up my mask as soon as anybody gets close to me, or whenever I'm doing a task that would require it. But yeah, even if company policy changes, short of them asking me to stop wearing a mask, which would be a whole different thing, I probably will continue with it in the future, for at least
Yeah.
for the foreseeable future. I this is the first year I haven't gotten like a sinus infection or upper respiratory infection. I can deal with that being like a normal aspect of my life.
I am seeing some serious value added in not getting sick. Like, I don't want to keep living in quarantine or whatever, not quarantine, but shelter in place, obviously. And I
Sure,
haven't been.
but
I like actually, I've got a duo gig booked here in June already. So like, yeah, we're gonna be doing a party. I won't be wearing a mask during that. That said, same day of me booking that, is I just bought a new mask so that when I go and see like wrestling shows or whatever, I'm definitely wearing a mask when I go to a wrestling show. Like,
it's not a terrible idea at the grocery store. It's not a
no, I'm
like
gonna
I
still
mean,
be wearing it at grocery store. Anytime I'm around strangers and people I'm not like trying to chum out with. Like if I go to a party, a social function or whatever, I'm gonna have the mask off. And I'm vaccinated at this point. I'm gonna trust that my vaccination is gonna carry me on the COVID front, and I'll take my risk on the run of the mill cold and flus that are still out there because I have an immune system. I should be able to handle
yeah,
this
yeah.
piece. Um,
You don't
but
want to baby it too much where it becomes ineffective.
No, and you also don't want to look like, Pollyannish, but at the same time, the CDC also kind of acknowledge that this breakthrough thing is real and that like, yeah, you can have a breakthrough virus, go through your vaccination or whatever. I don't want to chance it. I'm definitely anytime I'm going into a high traffic public area, I'm going to be masked up still for the foreseeable future here.
Sure.
I think I mean the
I'm
big
I'm
thing you oh go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm disappointed in the CDC kind of hanging me out as a I've been a like I was not furloughed at all. Like the we have a grocery store on the premises. Like we had businesses that were open, and so like the site needed to be kept clean. The weeds have no idea that there's a pandemic on. Like I wasn't furloughed at all. I worked
Why
through
didn't
this,
someone tell
and
them?
I wish if I could tell the weeds not to grow, Chris, I would it would make my job a whole lot
Okay,
easier.
so there's this dude named the Lorax. He speaks to the trees, but he might know a weeds guy.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
you
Look
got to
into
put
it.
me in
Look into it.
touch.
Yeah, I will. I will. I'm chill with him. Yeah. Anyways, um, like I agree. What you were saying about essential workers is kind of my steady bitch about the CDC's conduct. Obviously the Trump administration's conduct. But like the Democrats, they get into office, and to me, I want them to get into office and finally take care of essential workers who the economy and society has really relied on for the last 15 months. And instead of, you know, look, the initial bill that got passed when they first got into office that they used reconciliation on, yeah, it was $1,400 instead of 2,000 or whatever. But there's a lot of other really good stuff in there. Like if you're ever unemployed, they actually forgave the unemployment against your tax benefits or whatever. I mean, like, and then you also got a pretty large tax refund by virtue of that. And so a lot of people, really did end up ahead when all of that was done. But at the same time, there are people who've never been unemployed throughout this pandemic, like yourself. And there really needs to be more than just, okay, here is $600 from Trump, $1,400 from Joe Biden, and another little like one time check. Like they need to actually pass a real package for essential workers, and or actually and not or and also take care of those work sites and really treat them like places where if we are going to ask those people in those jobs to take on this additional risk, we should be taking additional protective measures, like real additional protective measures, not just like plastic screening and stuff like that. And it pissed me off that these essential workers were not some of the first in line for the vaccine either.
That's
That really got me.
it's it it was a little bit of a right when the Gavin Newsom recall campaign. I'm for the listeners, I'm out in California. At the As the Gavin Newsom recall campaign was really kicking off, with they had gotten their extension and it was looking like they were going to be on pace to get the signatures before the deadline. Um, One thing that he did that really drew my ire was he downgraded essential workers. Like we were going to go in with the 59 or the 55-year-olds. Like it was the 65 and over, and then it was going to be 55-year-olds, like teachers, essential workers. And then he kept the teachers, pulled the essential workers, and just made it 55 and over. And it was just, you're going into a recall campaign, bud. Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, and you really want to make sure the left flank is actually on your side on this, because your only chance of surviving a recall campaign is having your left flank there.
Yeah.
I know that this is the time where you start throwing out you start throwing out the goodies to the left. Like in a recall campaign, that's what you need to do.
The percentage of Californians 55 and over that are going to be his yes and no are definitely not the same way, like where they
No.
would be for
No.
yeah, anybody. Yeah, absolutely.
So various states are starting to consider financial incentives to increase vaccination numbers. One thing that has been depressing is vaccination numbers are actually, as I was kind of detailing in the last episode, kind of low. And there are certain states, many of which are under Republican governorship, but many of them are like just in like the southeast of the country, and so it's a complicated picture. But there are many states that really could use much stronger and higher vaccination totals. And it's kind of alarming. I did see, I was talking about bribing people on the last episode. I did see 57% of unvaccinated adults saying that a $1,000 savings bond, like from the government or whatever, would persuade them to get a COVID-19 vaccine. 57% said they would, 57% of unvaccinated adults who are employed said they would get vaccinated if they were required to work in person. So the one thing I didn't like about that is maybe there's a nudge that, well, we'll be able to get people vaccinated if we just end working at home, which is actually very contra to what needs to happen going forward here.
Yeah, absolutely. That little bit of language is inserted by the commercial landlords of America,
Yeah, this whole thing
or
reeks a
specifically
little
just
bit.
WeWork, because that's like 75% of ownership of commercial real estate in the America's major cities.
So yeah,
Or it was.
the pressure from business and industry component to the mask thing is stunning to, or like does strike to me, because you might go, well, gee, Chris, U.S. numbers are down. And that is certainly true. However, at the time of this announcement, the worldwide numbers for COVID-19 are at like near peaks in both infection rates and daily death rates. So when the CDC is making this decision, I guess the presumption is that COVID-19 couldn't possibly circle back around to the United States. Like it just couldn't happen. It, it that feels wrong. It feels like, and more importantly, it does not feel like the Anthony Fauci that we came to know throughout 2020, right? Like it feels like Fauci's tone in 2020 after the initial hiccup on masks and should you wear them or shouldn't you wear them. For the most part in 2020, Fauci sounded pretty consistent. Now, Fauci sounds very situational to me.
Yeah.
Um, I would like to see him. I would like to see him not be part of the public facing team anymore for the administration. He's still got insight to offer, but I do worry that his credibility peaked and that it's going the wrong way. And in the CDC, I think has also got trouble now too. Because
He was effective as a bulwark against Trump's nonsense because of his reputation, but at this point, there are ample, credible, effective people who could be in that position that the Biden administration would feel comfortable appointing.
yeah,
Like
right.
they
No, I
could
mean,
hand the reins off to a fresh face.
could be Walensky. But it could be someone else. You're absolutely right. I mean, no, there's any number of people. And frankly, Fauci is worried about the safety of his wife, who has been incredibly threatened in the last year. They're in like their late 70s slash around the age of 80. I don't actually think that, and this dude's been having to deal with bodyguards and stuff. I don't know why he would continue to want to be particularly public facing at this point. I think if they're gonna say mission accomplished, okay, Dr. Fauci, it's time for you to fade back into the woodwork here at this point. I don't know that I believe that.
Maybe that could be the cure for a gerontocracy, Chris. Fauci can just have the epiphany and go, guys, what are we doing here? We don't have that much time left. We should enjoy the rest of our lives. Why are we subjecting ourselves to this scrutiny, to
His new
all of this
prescription is
bullshit?
have a good time.
Yeah.
Dr.
Just
Fauci
throws
prescribes
back
a
the
good time.
shades. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if the have a good time mandate kicked in at 80, that's a nice way of putting it. Like, it's not forced retirement. Hey, go have a good time. Hey, you've been great. Go have a good time. Go have a good time. Whatever you want to do.
Thanks a bunch.
Thanks a bunch. And have a great time. Have a blast. You're a real hoot. A real hoot. Yeah. When Joni Ernst and Susan Collins heard about the CDC guidance, they pulled off their masks and yelled freedom as they stepped into the elevator on the second floor. Because Susan Collins is an idiot.
Yeah.
She's a really, really dumb person who, like, it's amazing that the Beltway media just sort of like they like Collins watch. Like, she's really kind of mystifying, and she's not. She's a corrupt Republican who sometimes votes moderate as a smokescreen. But she's at best a useful idiot for the Republican Party, but at worst, a very, very good apparatchik. But I tend to think she's a bit of a dope. Like, when she thought like Iran attacked the Capitol in 1/6, I think that's authentic. I don't think that's like her 4D chessing it. I think she's legitimately that stupid. It's not even a good explain away here. Collins also said famously that Brett Kavanaugh would not end abortion rights in the United States of America. And that is a take not unlike Joe Biden's take that the Republicans are going to come to their senses. It's just aging extraordinarily well. So Dan, abortion never been in a better and safer place than this week. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the Supreme Court's getting ready to have at it with
the 15-week one.
Yeah, that's from Texas.
That's from Mississippi.
That's
the
from Mississippi.
6-week one is from Texas.
That's insane.
And that effectively bans all abortion. And what I worry about is that the 6-week one has two functions. And the primary one's the Overton window movement function.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I kind of saw where your head was going on that too. It's to make the 15-week one seem reasonable by coming up with one that's like absolutely overtly ghoulish. But like, what the court's going to do is effectively end abortion in the country here. Meanwhile, this week, the Democrats' presidential blue panel commission on court reform met. It was scheduled to go for 90 minutes. They went for a whopping 25.
So
And
that's
then,
that's one of 180 days.
yes, well, yes, so yeah, that was the first public meeting. They have 180 days now to do other things.
Is when's the summer recess?
I guess that would include this. I don't expect them back before then, but the court is set to hear these cases, I believe, in October. So they would actually not be done with their commission until after the court hears the case.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they would come back, and I think it would be in between when the court hears the case and when the ruling comes down, so as to be maximally.
That'll be real clean politics right there. That's not going to be any sort of a circus.
Yeah, no. So I think this is bad. Is sort of my take on.
I concur.
No, I mean, like,
it's a very astute.
Look. I've been doing this for upwards of 10 years here. I'm coming up on my 35 spin around the planet here. The big 3-5. This is bad. Is kind of the insight level that you associate with "Don't Worry About the Government," the Novembrino brand, Nov brand. As we talk about it, just high level stuff. I applaud myself for that strong take. And I guess what else I would say is, look, we talked for a long time about on this show for years about how the court really does matter more than the Democrats give it credit for. And it's been a big problem with like neoliberal Democrats, establishment Democrats, but also in the broader coalition, a real underappreciation of just how out of pocket things can get in the court very, very quickly. And yes, of course, RBG created this situation. I mean, like the Breyer book. I don't know if you saw any of the excerpts from the Stephen Breyer book this week. Like, there's just this real naivete among the liberals on the court, the judicial liberals. They really think that like the court is above the fray and it's not political. But then like every so often, RBG would be like, oh, it'd be really bad if Trump won the presidency. Think about how bad that would be for the court. Why would it be bad, RBG? If you guys are above the fray and everything. I mean, it's because she knows they're not. But Breyer thinks a lot about civility and a lot about collegiality and all of this stuff and still going along to get along. So, like, really right now on the court, you have Kagan and Sotomayor, Breyer, who won't retire. He wants to still ride it out for a minute longer.
There's some 101 game theory that's like sitting at the bottom of this that like we need to like it needs to matter, like it needs to matter to Democrats, and we actually need to punch. Like you can't come to this, you can't have civility when one side is the aggressor and then one side's trying to make nice. Like it's not how it that's not how you bring a bully to heel. That's not how any system where one side is being is the aggressor and the other side is on defense. Like the bully's not going to stop bullying until it's checked by something.
No,
or runs into a wall. I mean,
look at Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton though. Like these guys are really scary. This is my governor in Texas here and the state attorney general. What makes these dudes particularly scary, for people who are not familiar with Abbott or Paxton, we've talked about them a fair amount on the show here. More than you probably get on most other podcasts, like because it's Brian's Texas based, I'm Texas based. Other people associated with the show and panelists with the show are Texas based, like Lindsay and stuff. So we talk about them a fair amount. What alarms me about Abbott is I don't think Abbott is a presidential aspirant. I think Abbott is a true crusader of conservatism and is really trying to move the football as many yards down the line right now. Same thing with Ken Paxton. Although I think Ken Paxton might be actually striving to be the attorney general, which you should all be very scared about. He is if Paxton becomes the AG under a Republican administration, he is going to make Bill Barr blush, I would suspect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
He's
no, I
he's
know. And that's what the moves he is making right now, those are the
that's
time.
what he's
Yeah,
setting it up.
yep.
He's sessioning.
He sure is. I mean, he virtue signaled with his week before the 1-6 mutiny, like by actually setting up a court case. Remember, Ted Cruz is like, I'd like to defend that court case. Like, yeah, no, it was Ken Paxton's court case that he sent up there. That makes him a perfect fit in a DeSantis administration where you can sort of signal to the base that you're law and order Trumpy or whatever without ever saying the T word.
Yeah.
So that you have plausible deniability in the media that's been carrying your water for you by like, oh, the
Just
Republicans have sort of changed.
anytime Trump comes up, oh, it's a boogeyman. They're trying to be a boogeyman. It's
Yeah.
water off the back, but
Oh,
just
Democrats
that.
keep bringing up Trump. That's why we can't get rid of him.
But Abbott as an apparatchik, you like wielding the current makeup of Texas like a weapon. It like for the purpose of shifting over to Windows, for messaging and signaling, like you can throw a banner out there that can generate a lot of money. Can like it's there is fertile ground where he's staken his claim.
Especially as Texas becomes more of a battleground state too. That only means the Republicans are going to pump more money into Abbott's machine and Paxton's machine.
How
So
many
the
how many of their friends own media companies in Texas?
Oh God, yeah, I know. So yeah, like I'm worried about that because I'm now seeing the trend here. The Texas politicians are really serving a major function in the Republican national operation. And obviously, I feel like getting Ted Cruz out of government is a national service, but frankly, disempowering as much of the Republican machine here in Texas is probably a serious value added for many states across the country and not just Texas. That's not, this is, the Republican Party is definitely setting up their last stand for Texas here. Because if they lose Texas, they lose the map. Um,
There is one thing to be thankful for.
Barbecue?
Well, no, in that it's still Ted Cruz occupying that seat as opposed to somebody even like remotely charismatic or likable or what have you. Like
He's
he's
beatable in 2024.
he's a
He's
target.
beatable.
He's a lot better than anybody like who actually has any swagger, who actually has any charisma
I
to
really
speak of.
would make it all about his wives and kids. Like that, not like about his kids, but that like this is the type of guy who leaves his wife and his daughters on an island. All the women
Well,
in his life he leaves on an island whenever things get going. It's like, oh, I'll leave my daughter behind. I gotta get to safety. Yeah.
Today's trending emasculate Ted is very
I didn't even see that.
is a
Yeah.
very good attack line. He was ranting about a U.S. Army video. He was favorably or ranting about a U.S. Army video saying it looked like we had an emasculated armed forces while praising the Russian uh, armed forces propaganda video, which is like tell a Texas Republican 20 years ago that or actually or no 30 years ago that
One day you'd have this like the Russian
Senator
military are tough. Yeah.
yeah
20 years ago that would have made they would have looked at the Democrat doing that and been like, "Oh, see, they've always been sympathetic to the Russians." Like the Republican turn on Russia was really a middle of the last decade thing. Like very quickly from 2014, maybe 2015 to they turned public opinion very quickly. All right, let's go to the main course here now. As much fun as it will be. Israel. Okay, so whenever we cover this on the show, it's always fraught. So I've done a lot of research and made sure that I try to get my facts as possibly in order as I can. There's always potential that I have missed some detail or another detail, but I have tried to, in my preparation for this, put together the most balanced presentation of the facts as I understand them. That's my caveat aside because Israel Palestine is one of those ones that I'll get emails about and or reviews about. Um, the current round of fighting between Israel and Hamas began May 10th after, this is my own editorial note, the Israeli government repeatedly antagonized during Ramadan. Um, the Politico copy I'm currently reading from seemed to conveniently omit this, what I consider to be rather important detail. So to augment that, I have this from the BBC World News. Clashes erupt in East Jerusalem between Palestinians and Israeli police. This is April 14th. Palestinians are angry over barriers which have been placed outside Damascus Gate entrance to the Jerusalem Old City, preventing them from gathering there after prayers at the Old City's Al Aqsa Mosque in what is the first night of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan. Palestinian discontent had been stoked earlier in the day when President Mahmoud Abbas had called off planned elections, implicitly blaming Israel over voting arrangements for Palestinians in East Jerusalem. Hamas, Mr. Abbas's Islamist rivals who control Gaza, were running in the elections and they reacted angrily to the postponement. Violence around Damascus Gate and elsewhere in Jerusalem continues nightly. That was the 13th of April. So after that, throughout the entire month of Ramadan, there were clashes between Palestinian protesters and the Israeli police. Meanwhile, Mahmoud Abbas kind of was doing the Israeli government a serious favor by postponing elections. Yet again, elections that, in a weird parallel to Netanyahu, it seems very likely Mahmoud Abbas would lose. So after that, there were rockets fired after the antagonism by the police, in addition to a new program of evictions being done. And evictions is probably even the wrong word for it because evictions implies like you didn't pay your rent or something like that. In this case, it is like forced removals of the people from the buildings, to paraphrase Fugazi there for a second. They are removing people from these buildings, these places that they have lived, and putting all their stuff on the street and saying that through the Israeli court systems, these have been ruled to be property of Israeli citizens, specifically Jewish Israeli citizens.
Well, first they're being declared sites of historic significance, sites of archaeologically significant sites that it is inappropriate that a dwelling is on top of because of their significance. And then a few weeks later, there's just people living there.
Yeah.
And they just happen to be they just happen to be Jewish now instead of the Palestinians that were, or they happen to be Israeli instead of the
instead of Palestinian, right?
Palestinians who had been living there for 50 years since.
Yeah, so this inflames Hamas, who is also mad that Abbas is not having elections, and Hamas is just, I mean, they've been slowly getting starved out here in Palestine, and I'm not saying that necessarily in like deep sympathy. They don't, they're not, morally perfect organization either, but like they are slowly getting choked out, and not unlike the entirety of Gaza, right? Like as this is happening, one of the things that's not lost on me is the vaccination rate in Israel, which Israel has been very quick to tout as like one of the world's best. 57% are fully vaccinated in Israel. In Palestine, it is currently around 2%. It might even be a little bit lower. And like that disparity is actually more pronounced than the casualty disparity here. But even that, I mean, you have 230 Palestinians killed here. Meanwhile, the Israelis, what is it, like 15?
12.
12 to 230. 63 children and 39 women, 1,700 people wounded, over 55,000 displaced. 50 schools have been destroyed across the region, which will disrupt the education for nearly 42,000. Yeah, 12 people in Israel, a 5-year-old boy, a 16-year-old girl. If I tried to do that with the Palestinians, we'd be here for a very long time. And so the fact that you can even kind of pare it down to like these little micro tragedies or whatever really does sort of You know,
It
it
it, it
serves to
highlights it
illustrate the
highlights the
disparity.
disparity.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. It serves to illustrate the disparity. It sure does. Um, so since the fighting began, Gaza infrastructure already weakened by the blockade has deteriorated further. Medical supplies, water, electricity running low in the territory. There was a nice fundraiser done by a lot of bread troopers and stuff, which I think was getting like, I don't know, I saw like upwards of $250,000 out to people in Palestine. That's great. That's good stuff. But like this whole thing has been yet another chapter in what seems to just be a long and steady choke out of Palestine.
Yeah, there's there's these really tragic moments in history, like I don't think like Israel thought they were going to be able to continue to, like, the ceasefire that went in this morning, or to this
Yeah.
morning their time, today, this afternoon here in the States. Um, like, they knew that was inevitable. There's these moments, like at the end of World War I, where or the end of World War II, where peace is inevitable, or like the fighting is going to be stopped. Like the Allies are marching on Berlin. You have that peace is inevitable, and generals they try and um, grab for extra land. Like you have these final pushes where, like, the treaty's
Right, right,
already been
right. Yeah,
signed.
yeah.
The treaty's
We're
already
just,
been signed, and 15,000 men get
you want to get some
like tuned.
acreage.
Yeah. Um, I, that's what a little bit of what, like, the past few these last 10 days have felt like, or have seemed like. It was very it's so asymmetric. It's so
And
uh,
to me, it felt like the Israelis really won this in the sense that like they were able to blow up
like,
a press building and they didn't even get the US government to draw a line publicly at other like, hey, you guys better not blow up another press building, for
yeah.
example. Yeah.
The AP fired a reporter today for having been in a pro-Palestinian group in college. Like, Israel blew up their headquarters in Gaza, and they fired a reporter over her ties to
I mean,
a
which
Palestinian
is
group.
no.
Like,
Here's what's crazy about that, right? Like, so this is not to say that everyone who is Jewish does this, but if you are Jewish, the nation of Israel will literally pay for you to go over to Israel and like have a vacation and like experience Israel and travel around and do all of that. So then the question would be if the AP is going to fire someone for being part of a pro-Palestinian group, would you then fire any reporter who had taken advantage of what Israel considers to be a birthright to them?
no, because that's not the nature of the relationship.
Yeah, right, right, right. And
it's
if
it's
not,
not it's
if
not
not, why
symmetric.
not? Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
yeah.
there is there's a real tension here that yearns to be resolved. And I mean, I think much like marijuana, it's yet another place where Biden is finding himself increasingly out of step with the younger Democratic base. It's
Abs-
there's a real tension here. There's a real
I
tension
didn't
here.
I didn't think I mean, I don't think he was ready for, like, 250,000 people marching in Detroit, like the day that he's flying into Dearborn.
Y
Like,
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
those are gonna get worse, I suspect. Yeah, no,
yeah, it's May.
yeah, it's May. The pandemic's not even over. Vax rates are low. People are still masking up and going out, but, like, I I think among many in the Democratic electorate, it's an interesting schism. And we actually see it inside of our own little "don't worry about the government" group here too, where you have, like you've got people who are riding with Biden. And that doesn't necessarily mean like Biden standing, but like, you know, Biden's fine. Like the due to Biden's, that sort of situation. But there are also a decent chunk of people associated with this show. Hi, how you doing? And others who are looking down the barrel of this Biden-Harris Democratic Party and going, this is not where I need liberal politics to go, or the Democrat, but fuck liberal politics, the Democratic Party. I mean, there's only two parties, and that's where this party's politics go. I need this party to go in a different direction than what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden can bring. And how do we even get there from here? At this point, I mean, it really does feel like an insurmountable hill. I know that after the primaries didn't work out the way people wanted, there was like a lot of soothsaying of like, we'll get him next time. Bro, I am looking at that hill and it's like trying to beat Trump for the Republican nomination here this next time. If you ask me which one would I rather do, try to bop off the Harris Biden Democratic ticket or bop off Donald Trump running for his second reelection, I don't know which one's easier. I know there are a lot of people who think that Kamala Harris can easily be felled. And like, yes, she in certain ways was unimpressive in that primary. She's, much like Trump, going to reclaim a nomination here. And it's going to be much, much easier for her. It's a totally different process.
Absolutely. Um, that's that's part of that's part of why I like jump on Mr. Inside Jokes framings all the time, and like we like to clown on some of the really like red tubey or like far leftist bad takes.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, look,
but
bad takes
like,
are fair game in all spectrums.
Yeah, but I find utility in those people because they are the threat of like, you better do better, or like this person has 100,000 followers and you're gonna have a bunch of these people knocking on your door if you don't get some shit together.
Want more. At least they want more. I'll give them that. I'll give sometimes more's not always better. But yeah, I feel you.
I like him as a threat. I like him as a like, hey, listen, you gotta get it. You gotta do a little.
I know, to your point. I see no value. I see no utility in Biden's soothsaying if Biden could earnestly be doing better. Like if Biden could pardon the man who got convicted for 1.5 ounces of weed, as just an easy, simple win. Like I don't actually understand why there would be utility in being the person who delivers the take of, actually, it's great that Biden is leaving this guy to rot in prison for the rest of his life because he got popped for 1.5 ounces of weed. Like, I don't see a value in that. It's that, like, okay, you go, oh, that's an extreme example. But no, it's not. It's a bad policy in defending it. Yeah.
He's providing jobs to the prison industry, to the prison industrial complex. There are catering companies. Airmark makes a lot of money off of our prison industrial complex.
That's true.
Want the CEO of Airmark to have like one less like koozie on his yacht?
The koozies are important. A good structural koozie really sets off the yacht, is what I like to say. All right. Do you want to get to the scandal roundup now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Was there anything else in the Israel section that we needed to get to? Obviously Biden did the weapon sales. He shouldn't have done the weapon sales. I'm glad that like Tlaib and Pocan and Ocasio-Cortez are trying to get that revoked, at least on some level. I mean, the problem with Biden is just very clear. He just doesn't have a problem with what Netanyahu's doing on any real level.
Free Beacon tried to dox AOC yesterday over it. Did you catch that?
No. What they try to dox her on?
I think Breitbart seized on it. It was she had allegedly there was a white Tesla illegally parked outside of the Whole Foods in the building where her apartment is, and they posted a picture of what is allegedly her car, and at the location of what is allegedly her apartment, the day that she was coming out after Israel. So whether or not it was actually her car, irrelevant. That wasn't the point. it could have been somebody else's white Tesla that they drove and parked there as an excuse to do it. It's just really, really shitty in trying to get somebody assassinated.
No, this is illustrative of a bigger problem that I have with media right now. Is we're in this real American news desert where you have CNN, MSNBC, and like I mean, I was watching Tapper's framing on the Israel
Oh
Palestine
man.
situation, and his framing on it was absolutely atrocious.
I mean,
And
he has a long history on that though.
he does.
Tapper is probably one of the worst.
Yeah,
The
he's
worst
not great. Yeah, no,
offenders.
he's very bad on that. But I mean, you often see the way the media frames the Democratic stuff. It's like Joe Biden is doing the absolute best he can, and what you would love to have is a sober, alternative, critical, but not necessarily hyper agenda driven, but like neutral, critical news source. Not neutral, but like, a news source that decides that the correct posture at all times is to be adversarial. Whether it's a Democrat, a Republican, a socialist, a
I
libertarian, that the point of that news service is to serve as the adversary.
I think we spent a bunch of time at the beginning of the show kind of tagging on some of the silliness of the Republican electorate right now, and
Yeah.
like following Trump as the Pied Piper. But
Their media is also deranged too. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, their media is also deranged.
But do you think, thus it's really useless to like us. It doesn't serve as a meaningful way of analyzing the shortcomings of establishment media because it's just deranged fever dream shit.
But I think we're also in a state where like if NPR was giving Biden like a real even keeled shake, the
then they're better than most. I'll grant them they really are better than
most. But you would have they would experience blowback. Like I think they would experience blowback from the
trustees,
the center left side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like that's why BBC World Service is really great for the outside coverage. Like I mean, like I almost would rather listen to foreign journalists try and cover like American politics.
That's what I'm doing. I read Politico and I watch foreign news.
I have the bank of context that is a lot of times the downfall of some of their stuff. Like they just don't have as much of the institutional memory of American politics to put two and two together, but they're at least calling balls and strikes. Like you get like a much less kayfabed like take on it.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. And because you're just like those journalists don't actually have to do the dance with the Democratic and Republican politicians, so they're not worried about access. So that's the difference between international news. So if I was living in the UK, I would want news from not the BBC because the BBC's journalists are worried about access to the British politicians. American journalists are worried about access to American politicians. In addition, another problem is that certain American news outlets, MSNBC and Fox in particular, Fox kind of the originator, MSNBC now a worthy competitor, they trade in really being the propaganda news arm of their respective parties. And as such, they're in a way they're not concerned about access because they have the Democratic politicians' access and they don't need the Republican politicians' access.
And it's turned into the daytime news, nighttime opinion formula of you just get your marching orders.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yes. And
whatever part is it, whatever color you're wearing.
And so they just don't simply serve a real good like they do to a certain point, but like they also don't after a certain point. And that's where I've really been leaning on international news and stuff. And I actually do that same point. Business.
I can read a press release.
Yes, right. No, whereas when I'm reading U.S. financial news, That is, it's much more. They're not concerned about access, so it's more balls and strikes. Yes, it's a little pro businessy or whatever on time, but like just have to figure out which ones you're talking about. But yeah, U.S. news, not great. Um, Moving on though, let us talk now about the scandals. There are so many of them. We're like not gonna have time to get to all of them or like into all the details of them. Let's just actually go like topic by topic here, real quick. Trump. What do you think about the new developments in the Trump scandal? How well acquainted are you, and do you need me to do a quick recap?
I'm really hoping to wrap up some Koopa kids in this. I know the Trump organization is under the charges have moved from civil to actually criminal.
Yeah.
I mean,
The asset
I'm
valuation
really
thing is
hoping
going to be a
to.
real problem. I think if they've got Weisselberg here, based off of Cohen's testimony, some of which was from AOC, like in her line of questioning or whatever, we talked about that being a really substantial inflection point. If they've got Weisselberg flipped, and I mean, right now we have whether taxes were paid on fringe benefits, including cars and tens of thousands of dollars in private school tuition for at least one of Weisselberg's grandchildren. Weisselberg needs to get his grandkids out of hot water here. And do you think Weisselberg is going to sell out Donald Trump, a guy who's never been too shy about the occasional anti-Semitic joke, to protect his kids? I tend to think he will. Yeah, I think this is a real problem for them.
Yeah.
This is one of the consequences from the. I'll have to say this. Well, the best thing about the one terming of Donald Trump is that all these cases have been able to move forward. And like this is a thing that absolutely could not have happened if Joe Biden was not elected president. And like
Absolutely.
and I am very glad because this asset devaluation thing seems very open and shut. It seems like there's a really obvious paper trail to all of this stuff because you have on one hand they have to file paperwork with a bank to claim what the asset is. And then on the other hand, they have to file additional paperwork with the federal government. If those paperworks are not harmonized, they fucked. I don't know how they're getting out of that one. And I'm guessing, and it seems like based on the Cohen testimony, this is a pattern of behavior, which probably doesn't shock anyone listening to this show. But like, I mean, this is the way they did business for like decades.
But
he's in trouble.
As much as I hope the hammer falls with divine justice. But we can't forget that he's a rich man in America.
Yes, absolutely.
And that actually, like, the precedent states that rich men in America kind of get away with a lot, and that to really break from.
It's hard to get the
break from precedent.
Cons. It's hard to get the Dominic Strauss-Cons.
Yeah, and to break from that tradition, I think he'll get hit with something to have it really, or I don't know. Somebody's gonna go down. I think he's gonna send one of his kids to prison to get out of it himself. He'll say like, "Oh, I'm too old to go to prison," and make one of the fail sons bite that bullet for him, since they may have been, or no, they weren't running it at the time, I guess.
No, I don't know how you dump it on the kids here.
But I also think like a Biden Justice Department, that like that's not his style. He's too like I.
Well,
I
this
don't
isn't
think,
his
like,
Justice Department.
This
is New York. This is Letitia.
Oh yeah, this is
it's Letitia James. Yeah. So, I mean that's and
no, that could make her governor.
Yeah, no, I know. I if you want to harmonize the Democratic electorate.
Rudy Giuliani became mayor of New York after wrapping mug guys.
Oh, dude, if Letitia James sent Rudy away, oh yeah. No, I mean. Democrats would have a hard time. I mean, a lot of people would have a hard time really hating seeing Rudy Giuliani go away because of Letitia James doing the work. So yeah, no, Rudy might be the guy in the crosshairs at this point. Now you're putting this into context. Another interesting presidential politics component of this is that Florida officials are preparing contingency plans for a Trump indictment as the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal investigation enters final stages. Florida law enforcement personnel in Palm Beach County are preparing for thorny extradition issues that could arise from a provision in Florida law that gives the governor, that would be DeSantis, the authority to order an investigation into, quote, the situation and circumstances of the person in question and whether the person ought to be surrendered to another state if they're indicted. So
Trump goes to prison. Goes to prison in New York. DeSantis gets him extradited to Florida, where he lives in essentially like a hotel room of a jail cell.
well, he's basically living in Florida right now. So, like the extradition here in this case is that he's residing in bed.
He could.
Yeah.
DeSantis could deny the extradition to New York.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
What a time! What a time to
And
be
that
alive.
would put DeSantis in a real pickle because I mean, here's the thing: if you sell out Trump, that is it. It is over. Kiss your ass. I don't care.
That's how Ron DeSantis becomes
MAGA Jackson. Yeah, not going to help you.
That's how Ron DeSantis becomes the Republican nominee. It's because he has like Trump can't serve because he's on the lam in Florida. So
this is where I think if Trump does this to him, this is where DeSantis is in a real situation. Because either you send Trump away and you go, I have the best chance to win the nomination. But if you send Trump away, you are dead. You are dead.
He can't. Yeah, no.
Earth, Gates, Marjorie Taylor Greene merge into a megazord of stupid, a magazord, and they like come after you with fiery death, Ron DeSantis. So then the alternative is he needs to broker a deal with Trump wherein he protects Trump, weathers the storm, and solidifies the Republican base around DeSantis as the guy who's protecting Trump. Trump can't run, but he can stay here in the safe harbor of DeSantisville.
Oh God, Florida president. No, Chris, no.
I know. DeSantis of all and
Florida
DeSantis he's a scary guy. He's a scary guy. Same with Gates. Like these dudes are like scary, and I know that they're both easy to laugh at and they have like derpy faces or whatever, but like they're legitimately scary political entities that have the force of Donald Trump, who is a serious. It's why Marjorie Taylor Greene is not Michelle Bachmann. That's why. It's why she's not Sarah Palin. She has the force of Trump behind her. And
all the country club Republicans laughed real nervously once, like with the Sarah Palin thing. They were willing to go along with the Bachmann thing if it got them a seat, but it's
this is not where they want to go. This is not where they want to go. Speaking of Gates, let's do Matt Gaetz and then we can do Bill Gates. So Matt Gaetz, God, where are we even at with Matt Gaetz at this point? His friends going to stooge on Gates, and like we've now got to cocaine parties and very specific allegations against Gates that are starting to leak out here, which lead you to believe that the case against Gates is very substantial and specific.
Yeah.
Very specific.
Yeah, very specific details. Very
bad, lurid details. I mean, amazingly though, and a further testament to is this Republican Party coming to their senses? No, the Republican electorate has not abandoned Matt Gaetz, even though we've come a long way from Roy Moore, baby. Roy Moore, we heard that he was diddling a 17-year-old. We're like, that's wrong. 34-year-olds shouldn't diddle 17-year-olds. That's wrong. Then Matt Gaetz, we have his Venmo stuff going on here and other the dots and the available info on Matt Gaetz is fairly strong, and we're still not abandoning ship on him.
Roy Moore, you had something I don't expect anything from Republicans. They're not going to. But
even the national Republicans did actually cut the cord on Roy Moore eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's dude, I'm not saying they were they really stood their ground that time and they were noble, but they actually were Roy Moore child diddling. Okay, enough. But we've moved past that. We broke through the Roy Moore threshold.
Well, that's because it didn't. Well, actually, yeah.
And then ironically,
they had no
QAnon
choice at that
became
point.
popular. Like, the thing is, Roy Moore, child diddler, runs for Congress. Then the Republican electorate becomes enthralled with this omnibus conspiracy where everyone's doing all this child raping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Bill Gates, um, boy, the stories just get worse and worse with this dude.
So did Bill Gates strangle Jeffrey Epstein? Is that where we're landing on this?
Tell you what, I mean, anyone who's telling you that Jeffrey Epstein died of natural causes is absolutely fucking crazy at this point. Like, it's the only thing I have in common with a lot of those right-wing podcasts. No, you're not going to convince me that Jeffrey Epstein died of natural causes. Hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. It's very obvious. Someone with money, I don't know, Bill Gates comes to mind, made sure that this job got done. Yeah. Bill Gates.
Melinda asked him for a divorce, and he proved how serious he was about ending his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein by hiring somebody to break his strangle him in his jail cell.
I
In
mean,
Minecraft, these are not the thoughts expressed by Dan.tm are not the thoughts of don't worry about the government.
yeah, no. Look. I think that
I think these
I
things in
think Bill
Minecraft.
Gates is capable of a lot of things. I think the world of what Bill Gates is capable of is a very big and expansive world. Yeah, he's a really rotten dude. I don't have a lot more to say, but I mean, like I think that for a long time, there was maybe more in the 2010s. There's this whole debate of can you like ethically be a billionaire or whatever. And I think the only exception I could come up with when I was looking at a list this week was Paul McCartney. And it's Paul McCartney only because like he literally only became a billionaire like in the last couple of years or something like that. Like he's not even a real true billionaire. And you can even argue McCartney probably could give away.
You have to create an insane amount of intellectual property in your 20s and then have it literally grow over a 50-year span.
And to that point, no, like McCartney, you could actually probably argue in terms of like commercial value or whatever that McCartney's wealth is actually like earned wealth or whatever. Like, I mean, like,
well, I mean, my very solid opinion on that is that nobody has ever earned $1 billion, but actually
he's a really hard case.
He is a very compelling case.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's people who deserved $1 billion but never got it. But
right, no, I certainly, it's literally the only one I could come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I saw it when I was like, oh shit, that was actually a tough one to just kind of wave off because like McCartney. Yeah,
I use that argument, and I'm not going to stop using that argument. But I'm glad that I know that Paul McCartney can come at me. I'm
no, the McCartney rebuttal is one that you have to seriously like consider now. I might have to just make it a straight up exception. He's just an asterisk.
Yeah, no, it gets included in the framing of the question.
Unless you are Paul McCartney. But. Other than him, it's really the only one I can think of. Maybe some athletes or whatever. Maybe. I mean, boy, you could argue it on a commercial level, but like, I mean, here's the thing, especially with like sporting events. What is the fraction of people going back and listening to old Beatles albums? It's like literally every Beatles fan. Fraction of people going back and watching old Chicago Bulls games. It's a much, much smaller microcosm or whatever. Anyways, last topic here. Susan Collins in the news because of a scheme to illegally finance Collins' 2020 election bid. Not necessarily tying back to her, unfortunately, to my chagrin, to my
I was so disappointed to come across that line.
I hated that line. I hated it because I read the headline.
Got her.
No, I hate her. She's stupid. She's dumb, and I want her to go away. Like, hate this woman. Everyone thinks she's so smart, and she's not. She's an idiot.
She's very concerned.
She is. It's a very concerning situation. It really is.
Susan Collins is very concerning.
Yeah, she's concerned. I'm concerned for her. All right, that's the end of the slate here. Dan, do you want the chicken experience? Are we doing the chicken experience? Or do you have
How you feeling? How you
I
are
mean,
you?
I'm feeling good. I mean, real quickly before I pull out the chicken,
I mean,
patreon.com/DWATG is where you can go to support the show. And if you want to see me suffer the chicken, that's how you would be able to see the chicken experience. What were you going to ask though?
I just I initially it was a question, but I came to the resolution that Cody definitely deserves whatever's coming as well.
Oh, I got this.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
gonna
I was
really.
like,
This
does
is gonna really
Cody
shove it in Cody's face in a way
need the
that Cody's not gonna know what hit him. Watch this. Watch this. Here we go. We got a lot of shit going on in this microwave here. We're gonna get. Go away, Shadow. Yeah, a little bit of that going on here. Okay, so look at the spice level on this friggin'. Yeah, no, it's like
I'm a hot pepper and spice enthusiast. I love my my ghost pepper hot sauces. There's a hot pepper sauce or a hot pepper shop, hot sauce shop down in Key West called Peppers of Key West, where you can sit there and have your hot sauce bartender just slowly ramp up the levels of heat on you.
Okay,
and it was
yeah.
it was an amazing experience. I left there completely beet red, sweating, just completely loaded up, but it's great. I mean, it's like doing yoga.
We're doing
like
this with a little bit of the sauce. We're doing because
the sweat going.
This is the comeback sauce or the comeback sauce here. A little bit of sauce here. This shit is good though, fellow Texans. Oh shit. It's still really hot. Fuck me. All right, Dan, you have an important question to ask me right now while I'm like suffering in pain?
What I thought
I'm happy to answer any. Oh,
you were directing invective at Cody. I was going to say,
Cody's an idiot. Like this. Cody sucks. Get away, Yuffie. Yuffie is staring into the. You hate Cody too, don't you? Yeah, exactly. Cody stinks. Tell him what else. Patreon.com/DWATG. Support the show. Dan, this even with the sauce, this is still like unbelievably hot.
You're making me really hungry. I'm craving some spicy fried chicken now.
This Ricky's baby. Ricky's Nashville Hot. This is the commercial for y'all.
I want to say in the end of 2019 when my wife and I were on our honeymoon through Texas, I want to say I tried Ricky's Nashville Hot. Like when you said the name, it is a name that I recognize. I don't think I got the insanely hot wings, but
oh man,
I feel like I may have Ricky's. I was in an RV, so I wouldn't have wanted to do a 4 or 5. But.
No, oh god, no, you wouldn't want. No, I mean, I'm regretting that. That was hot. All right, I did one of those before the show though, and it just cleared out my sinuses.
Feel like the best. That's what I mean. Like it's such like a cleansing. It's hot. It's difficult in the time, but it's a.
Yeah, no, it's really stressing the tongue here. The cats are having a hard time with it. But like, I almost want to give them like a bite of the hot chicken just to see like the misery on like one of their faces.
The poor babes.
They're not that poor. Oh, they're not that poor. My God. Okay, we gotta go for the close. Dan, where can people find you on Twitter?
DL Carpenter at DL Carpenter on the
DL Carpenter.
Usually in your replies.
In my replies too. At DWATG is the show's homepage. My name is Chris Novembrino. Don't worry about the government. Can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, patreon.com/DWATG. Oh, God. It's a listener supported show. I want to thank you all so much for supporting the podcast. Cody sucks. Fuck Cody.
This is all Cody's fault.
This
It's
guy, what an
absolutely all
idiot
Cody's
he!
fault.
I can't believe he did this to me. Until the next episode, bye bye, and we'll see you then.